Often in life, we come across certain situations wherein we have to stop and think before making a decision. Because the decisions that we make today, we are going to face the consequences of it later on. And therefore, it's very important to make proper decisions. We need to think and then make the decision. So the poem that we are going to learn today is also one such poem which gives us a message to stop and think. The poem is entitled The Road Not Taken, written by the poet Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both. And with one traveller, long I stood, and looked down as far as I could, to where it bent in the underwood. Now the first stanza of the poem tells us that once the poet went for a long walk in the woods. Woods in the sense, a forest. And as he walked, he came across a place wherein the road diverged. Diverged in the sense, got separated into two different, it got branched up. So as you can see in this picture, that this is the single road and later on it is diverging. So he stood at this spot and he wondered which road should I take. And he looked as far as he could. And then he saw that the road turned and bent in the undergrowth. Now when things are straight, you can see them before you. But when they turn or when they bend, you cannot see what is at the other end. And that is exactly what happens. So he is wondering now what to do. And he was only a single traveler. So he stood and he thought about it. Then took the other as just as fair and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as far for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. So he just wondered what should I do, because he had to choose any one of the roads. And he says both were grassy and both wanted wear. Wear in the sense needed to be used, needed to be walked upon. And though he said, what should I do? He's standing and he's wondering about it. And they really looked the same. Though they were trampled upon, they both looked the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first one for another day, and yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. And the third stanza, he says, it's morning time, both the roads looked equally the same, and both needed to be walked upon, travelled, trodden in the sense, stamped and walked upon. And so he says, I will choose one road for today and the next road for another day. And he says, what if that road leads to another road, as way leads to another road? And what if I shouldn't come back? So these are the doubts that he is having in his mind before choosing one of the roads. And he says, one I will travel today and one I will travel some other day. So this is what he thinks of, and he starts on his journey. He has chosen one of the road, he has travelled it, and the last stanza gives us the consequence of what has happened in his life. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. So he says, I shall be telling this with a sigh, in a sense with a long deep breath. I shall be expressing myself somewhere ages and ages, and it means after years and years. I will be expressing myself and telling about the decision that I took in travelling on one of the roads. And he says, I took the one less travelled by. Sometimes it so happens that some roads are very crowded and some roads are very less crowded. So the less crowded ones you can say are less traveled by. So he says, I took the one which was less traveled by, and that has made a great difference or made a difference in his life. So often the decisions that we take leads to a change in our life later on. So therefore, stop, think and make a proper decision in life. That's all for today. Have a nice day.